All right, guys, I just want to talk about a few tweets that I screenshotted that happened today regarding conference realignment, and then talk about a potential scheduling model, my proposal on what we should do for college football when we expand to these 16-team conferences, 18-team conferences, whatever it ends up being. What is the scheduling model that we should have? Because there's going to be more teams in the conferences. You want one more conference game, and I've got a full, in-depth, laid-out scheduling format. Of course, we've got the rumor from the source that the Big 12 is looking at going to a 10-team conference scheduling format with 2 non-conference games. But guys, let's talk about these few tweets. We've got one. It says, here's why all the rumors about ACC teams joining the SEC are just BS for now. Those within the ACC say the grant of rights is fairly ironclad. So I'm sure, and this has been reported, the SEC is perfectly fine at 16 teams, and the reason they're fine at 16 teams is because the Big Ten hasn't gotten Notre Dame yet. If the Big Ten gets Notre Dame and Stanford, suddenly I don't think the SEC is going to be fine at 16 teams. That's just my opinion. But right now, it's looking like the ACC has a major stranglehold with that grant of rights deal on those schools. You know, like a Clemson, like a Florida State, who theoretically, in a perfect world, if they're not tied down, you could be looking at making 3 or 4 times more money. Maybe not 3 or 4 times, but at least double the amount going to the SEC per year, which is, I'm sure, what they would want to do, but they're under that contract, they're under that grant of rights until 2036. But if the Big Ten adds Notre Dame and Stanford eventually, you're going to see many lawyers come out of the woodwork and try and get those schools out of that grant of rights deal. I assure you that. But right now the SEC is like, listen, we're at 16 teams. The Big Ten's at 16 teams. We're fine. I think that changes if the Big Ten expands more, personally. But right now they're saying they're fine. And then the SEC commissioner says that the SEC is already a super conference. So at 16 teams, he's saying they're a super conference. You know, I guess this is subjective, but I would not consider, I mean, they probably are, but I would say a super conference, you got to get to 18 teams, in my opinion, for you to be labeled a super conference. It's just like the magic number. 18 teams, you can be labeled a super conference. 16 teams, I mean, they probably are. They've got Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia. You can go on, Florida, A&M, you can go on and on. It's a loaded conference, so I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. And then here's another interesting thing, talking about the playoff format, which I have not discussed at all. So guys, there's the whole idea, if we expand to 12 teams, the original theory is all of the Power 5 teams get an auto bid, because the conference champion gets an auto bid. Then a group of 5 gets an auto bid. Then there's 6 open spots. Obviously, that all changes with these super conferences. You can't give the Pac-12 at this point an auto bid. So I don't know how that changes, how things look in the future. But clearly, the format that we were talking about, all the conference champions in the Power 5 getting an auto bid, it's not going to work because the Power 5 doesn't exist anymore. For all intensive purposes, right? I mean, I guess you could say there still is a Pac-12, but once the move happens, the Pac-12 is going to be a lot weaker. It becomes a Pac-10, and you lose USC, UCLA. You can't give that conference an auto bid for a 12-team playoff. So the format's going to change, and I guess it's just going to be the best teams. Those are the teams that make it. I would assume there's going to be no if the Pac-12 champion must make the playoff because they have an auto bid. I don't think there's going to be any auto bids. Or maybe the only auto bids would be, obviously the team that wins the Big Ten is going to make it guaranteed. They're going to make a 12-team playoff. Same thing with the SEC. You wouldn't need to have them as auto bids. I'm just saying with this super conference, it completely changes the way the format is structured when we inevitably expand to the 12-team playoff in the year 2026. That's all I'm saying on that. But guys, getting to the new scheduling model, this has been rumored by the Big 12. If they expand their conference, you're looking at a 10-team conference schedule, and this is how I would do it, guys. Take a look at this. New scheduling model. You've got 12 games total. 10 conference games, 2 non-conference games, 1 mandatory home and home needs to be scheduled per year. So every single year, if you are a team within the Power 5, I would say, I guess you can't enforce it, but I would strongly encourage teams, and I think it wouldn't be hard to encourage them, schedule 1 home and home. You can face another crap team as your other game, but one of your 2 non-conference games needs to be a home and home. For example, like Ohio State's 2025 schedule, you've got the 10 conference games, then you've got your home and home, you'd be at Washington, and then you get to face your crap team, and it would be Miami of Ohio. This would be a drastically different schedule than what we're getting this year in college football. You look at the SEC, those teams play 8 conference games. Why do you think they constantly get 2 teams in the playoff? Because Georgia and Alabama never face each other in the regular season. They only play 8 non-conference games. They have 4 non-conference games, 3 of which are all jokes, and then they face 1 decent team. That's their schedule. The Big Ten, 9 conference games, 3 non-conference games. Normally, 2 of them are jokes, and the other game is tough. Look at Ohio State's schedule this year. Arkansas State, Toledo, and Notre Dame. 2 joke games, and you've got Notre Dame. Look at Michigan's schedule. Colorado State, Connecticut, and Hawaii. 3 horrible games. So the scheduling is so unbalanced, and the reason is because it's a 4-team playoff, and these teams don't want to lose non-conference games because it'll give them 0 margin for error when it comes to the regular season. That's why an expanded playoff will encourage teams to schedule more aggressively in their non-conference schedule. If you expand to a 12-team playoff, Michigan doesn't have to worry about losing to Notre Dame, and then if you lose to Ohio State at the end of the regular season, even if those are your only 2 losses, you're out. But in a 12-team playoff, if those are your 2 losses, you're in the 12-team playoff. You're fine. So that is, we want to encourage teams to schedule more home and homes. That is one of the best thing in college football. It's the non-conference home and home. It's the, Ohio State going to Oregon. Unfortunately, that never happened, but it's, Notre Dame coming to the Horseshoe, playing at Ohio Stadium. That's happening week 1. Even Alabama at Texas. That's fun. We want those matchups, and we want more of them. And the 10-game conference schedule, the reason you expand it to 10 games is due to the fact that the conferences are bigger. So if you've got a 16-team conference, an 18-team conference, you want to face as many teams within the conference as possible so we have an actual accurate representation of who the best team within the conference is. One of the main concerns with like a 24-team Big 12 and any of these proposals that I've shown, these teams are going to be in their pods. It's almost like you have sub-conferences within the mega conference. Like this Big 12 proposal has 4 different pods, all regionally based. It's like, that's not even a conference. That's like a league, and then you have sub-conferences within the league. But supposedly, it's going to be a 24-team conference. So I think there should be a threshold. I don't want conferences bigger than 20 teams at the most. Preferably, let's keep it at 16. If the Big 12 wants to expand to 16, they want to get, let's just say, for argument's sake, Oregon, Arizona State, and Colorado. Then we've got 3 16-team leagues. Let's stop there. Maybe the Pac-12 wants to expand and take some of the Mountain West teams. I don't want these leagues to be 24 teams to where they're all pods and it's like there's conferences within the conference because the leagues are so big. But guys, I just rambled on. I'm sorry. The point of it is we want, because the conference is expanding, we want more games to matter. We want more conference games. We want these teams to face each other more. If you've got a 16-team conference, you would love to get 10 conference games, so at least you're facing more than half the league. And then the 2 non-conference games, of course, the reason you want the 1 mandatory home and home is to encourage more games that are going to be meaningful at the, during the regular season. We want to trim off as much fat as possible. It's so crazy to me how the SEC continues to get away with playing 4 non-conference games. It is pathetic. And this is not me taking a shot at the SEC. It's not good football. We all love college football. We all want games to matter. And you're seeing Alabama face, the 4 non-conference opponents, 3 of which are Southern Miss, Fresno State and whoever, Utah State they face this year. I mean, nothing against Utah State, but I'm just saying there's a major lacking element right now. The SEC is supposed to be the best league, and 3 of their games, basically everybody's 3 games, are completely non-competitive. They're completely 3 out of your 12 games are non-competitive, and then if you're Alabama or if you're in the East, you also get a game against Vanderbilt. So 4 of your games are completely non-competitive. So, like Georgia, for example, you face Vanderbilt, you face Missouri every year, you face 3 crap teams, and their one hard non-conference game is Oregon in a so-called neutral site game that's taking place in Atlanta, Georgia, but it's neutral site. Yeah, it's neutral site. Give me a break. Guys, this is the future scheduling that we need if they want to stay at 9 conference games. It's annoying because if you've got 3 non-conference games, it's just going to be the Ohio State format to where we have one home and home, and then you've got 2 crap teams. You face Notre Dame, and then you face Arkansas State and Toledo. That's what every Big Ten team does, unless in the rare cases like Michigan, where they don't face anyone in their non-conference. And that's not to take a shot at Michigan. Michigan normally has a hard non-conference schedule. They got scarred because they kept losing their non-conference games, and then they would lose to Ohio State, so they'd miss the playoff. Now they're not scheduling hard non-conference games at all. That would change if you expanded to a model where it incentivizes playing tough teams, which would be the 12-team playoff model. You can lose 2 games and still get into the playoffs. The Super Bowl champions, they lose 4 or 5 games every year, guys. I'm not saying the NFL is comparable to college, but this idea to where if you lose 1 game, your season is over, people think that's good for college football. Like, that makes every game matter. No. The games are still going to matter. There's only so many college football games your team plays a year. This is not baseball where the team's on every night. No matter what, the games are going to matter. We're going to want to watch the games. There's only so many. There's only a possibility of 15. For many teams, there's 12 or 13. Okay, so the games will matter no matter what. That's the overall point. And guys, this new model, we'll see what the Big 12 ends up doing. There's rumors they're going to maybe implement it. I would love to see a 10 conference. It's so different. 8 conference games is what guys, I'm not saying the SEC is not the best conference. The SEC is the best conference. But no wonder they get 2 freaking teams in the playoff every year. They barely face each other. They play 8 games. It's a big difference. Imagine Ohio State and Penn State not facing each other, facing each other once during the regular season over the span of 7 years. Yeah, that'd be nice, right? It's just a joke, guys, but we will see if this gets implemented. That is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.